Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something.
Recommended it.
It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
But you wouldn't rule it out, sir?
All right, folks, we have some fairly disturbing breaking news in the ongoing Trump-Epstein scandal, which is that Trump was just asked by reporters whether he would pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. For context, Maxwell is a former friend of Trump's, the accomplice to late sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, who was also a former friend of Trump's, and third, someone who herself was convicted of sex trafficking minors and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Now, rather than simply say, well, hell no, I wouldn't give her a pardon or a commutation, of course not, you crazy, you kidding me? Trump instead, very carefully and very publicly, leaves the door open and reasserts his authority to do so. Now, that's disturbing in and of itself, but what makes it even worse is that both yesterday and today, Todd Blanch, who is both Trump's former personal attorney and current deputy attorney general, decided to meet with and interview Maxwell, leading many to rightly speculate that perhaps Trump and Blanch are seeking favorable testimony from Maxwell, which could be politically beneficial for Trump, given that the Epstein scandal is clinging to him like a fog that he can't shake off, in exchange for a pardon or commutation from Maxwell. It would be an extraordinarily corrupt abuse of power, and that's textbook Donald Trump, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we've got a lot to talk about here. This is a shocking development. It really is, just Trump doing it in broad daylight. To give you some context, though, I want you to see what Donald Trump once said about Ghislaine Maxwell back when he was president the first time.
Mr. President, the other day a reporter asked you about Ghislaine Maxwell. You said, quote, "I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, but I wish her well, whatever it is." Mr. President, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested on allegations of child sex trafficking. Why would you wish such a person well?
I don't know that, but I do know that
she has. She's been arrested for that. You know
her
that.
friend or boyfriend,
Epstein,
was either killed or committed suicide in jail. She's now in jail. Yeah, I wish her well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well. Good luck. Let them prove somebody was guilty. I mean, do you know that?
Oh, so you're saying you hope she doesn't die in jail? Is that what you mean by wish her well?
Her boyfriend died in jail, and people are still trying to figure out, how did it happen? Was it suicide? Was he killed? And I do wish her well. I'm not looking for anything bad for her. I'm not looking bad for anybody. And they took that and
she's a child sex alleged child sex trafficking.
Big deal. But all it is her boyfriend died. He died in jail.
All right, so again, her boyfriend was Trump's former friend, sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, who died in jail in federal custody on Trump's watch when he was president. Notice again how Trump, even at the time, was hyping it up. People are wondering why. They say suicide. Like he's gassing up the right-wing conspiracism, which has infected the MAGA movement and is now working against him. But he doubled down on it. It just wanted to die on this hill, that he was wishing her well. Okay, again, just context here. Now, Joyce Alen, who is an attorney and commentator on X, she makes a really compelling case here. She says, Trump could give Ghislaine Maxwell a pardon on his last day in office in exchange for favorable testimony. Now, SCOTUS has already said he can't be prosecuted for it. She knows he's her only chance for release. That means any new testimony she offers is inherently unreliable unless backed by evidence. Really good point. Alen goes on to say, and favorable could mean a lot of things here. Exonerating him, testifying about other people that MAGA has long believed were involved with Epstein. She can't be trusted because Trump can't be trusted. The pardon power is his to wield for his personal benefit, and she knows that. And then in response, Empty Wheel, another Twitter user and commentator, says, and this is why he fired Maureen Comey, to make sure no one who could test her claims would interfere. Worse, to make sure no one representing the interests of the victims would weigh in. And Maureen Comey is someone at the Justice Department that Trump fired within the last week, or Pam Bondi did rather. Comey is both the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey and somebody who prosecuted Epstein in the first place. I think she may have prosecuted Maxwell as well. I can't remember that exactly, but she was heavily involved in the prosecution against these cases. And Trump fired her, which also raises a question like, okay, if you're not in the Epstein files and you're anti-Epstein, why did you fire the person who led the case against Epstein and Maxwell and so forth? So that's a really good point by Empty Wheel. But this point, too, by Joyce Alen can't be overstated, which is that in Trump v. United States, when the Supreme Court granted sweeping presidential immunity, they made it abundantly clear that a president can't be prosecuted for core constitutional powers. And the pardon power is a core constitutional power. In other words, the Supreme Court made it clear that even if you abuse a core constitutional power, you use it for blatantly corrupt ends, it doesn't matter. You can't be prosecuted for it, which is stupid and absurd. The idea that the framers intended for any branch or any member of any branch of the government, be it the executive, the legislative, or the judicial, to be able to corruptly abuse power and get a fucking green light is insane and sick and antithetical to a functioning democratic republic. Hey, when you said that the president could pardon, has the pardon power, can they use it for any damn reason, including to like enrich themselves or for their own political benefit, like nakedly? Can they use it for corrupt purposes? The framers would have been like, no, obviously not, because that's an abuse of power. The Supreme Court doesn't care. So again, the green light here is stunning, and the map, the road is just wide open. Democratic Minority Leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, put it pretty bluntly, for him especially, in an 18-second video.
Sending Donald Trump's personal lawyer, Todd Blanch, to interview Ghislaine Maxwell while she's in prison, a woman who's been convicted of abusing people, to offer some kind of corrupt deal so that she can exonerate Donald Trump, just stinks of high corruption.
Again, textbook, classic Donald Trump. And also, again, just to really provide some context here, this is how Todd Blanch describes Maxwell's attorney.
We'll get a lot out of it that you were willing to come on and talk to me for an hour about the case.
I was happy to do it, David. And I mean, in all seriousness to you, I know a lot of people that have worked with you. I know a lot of people who know you very well. I now consider you a friend and someone who I know pretty well. You are by far the best out there, and I'll always say yes to this podcast. It could be the first three-peat.
Let's do a three-peat. You're gonna win the next one and come on after the next one after a victory.
Done. That's a deal, David.
So the guy who met with Maxwell, who used to be Trump's personal attorney and is now his deputy attorney general, and therefore in a position of influence over just the Trump administration and whether Ghislaine Maxwell remains in prison or has her sentence commuted, he is personal friends with Maxwell's attorney. So again, these like incestuous, potentially corrupt conflicts of interest are manifold. Tara Palmieri, a journalist whom we've interviewed and someone we're probably going to interview again next week on this. She's been covering the Epstein story for years. She weighs in on why interviewing Maxwell is dubious at best.
To lure them into a man, they weren't going to walk up to some 50-year-old man's home in Palm Beach. They needed to be brought by her to see the idea that a woman who also perjured herself, that they would be even considering her and what she has to say is heartbreaking. I mean, I spoke to one victim today, Annie Farmer, and she said it made her stomach turn.
So Palmieri makes a really good point here, which is that Ghislaine Maxwell is notoriously unreliable. As Midas Touch points out, from Ghislaine Maxwell's sentencing memo, quote, taken together with the defendant's perjury in her civil deposition, her lies to pretrial services, and her blatant lies about her own weight while in BOP custody, the court can fairly reject many of the defendant's complaints about her conditions of confinement. Simply put, the defendant lies when it suits her. So that is why Aline Joyce says, listen, her testimony is inherently untrustworthy unless she can corroborate it with compelling evidence. So simply taking her at her word seems ridiculous. And there are articles exploring this as well. Can Ghislaine Maxwell be trusted to tell the truth about Jeffrey Epstein? And so, folks, this is why it's really important we discuss this. The Ghislaine Maxwell thing seems to be the closest thing to a Hail Mary that the Trump administration has truly grasped at. I'm not sure it'll work, but it is the most compelling Hail Mary that they've gotten so far, simply changing the topic and everything else. That hasn't cut it. But them going to Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's former accomplice and a former friend of Trump's, to elicit potentially favorable testimony, which could be politically beneficial for Trump, I'm not saying that's a silver bullet, but that's the closest thing to some sort of advantage that Trump has had in this entire situation, this entire debacle. This is the closest thing to an advantage that he can feasibly grasp. And that's why it's important for us to not put too much stock in Ghislaine Maxwell, a notorious liar and perjurer who is desperate to get out of jail. And Donald Trump is the ultimate authority on that because he has the pardon power. and even corrupt abuses of the pardon power simply can't be prosecuted. And Donald Trump has a notorious history for corruption. So we have no reason to give any of these people the benefit of the doubt. And that's why this is no substitute to releasing the Epstein files. So folks, do not let them move the goalposts on this. Don't let MAGA say, well, sure, Trump didn't release the Epstein files, but this is what Ghislaine Maxwell said. That's not enough. You guys wanted the Epstein files released. This is no substitute. And again, note, Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of abusing children, sex trafficking minors, and Trump is leaving open the door to pardoning or commuting her sentence. That is gross and despicable. Imagine how MAGA would react if President Biden or President Obama attempted to do something similar. How would they react? So again, folks, we need to really set expectations accordingly and not allow Trump to move the goalposts. And as this, again, potentially obvious corrupt abuse of power, corrupt conflicts of interest manifests itself, we need to call it out relentlessly. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.